Shabbat Shalom and happy last day of Hanukkah. Hope it was a good holiday for you. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Miketz. It is the second in the trilogy of the story of Joseph and his brothers. Of course, there's another parsha right afterwards, Vayechi, but the main story of Joseph and his brothers is made up of three Torah portions. The center one is Parashat Miketz that we will read this Shabbat morning. If you remember the end of last week's Torah portion, we had Joseph in prison. He had interpreted the dreams of the cupbearer, the steward, and the baker, and his predictions were correct. And when the steward was let go, he said, "Please remember me and remember me to Pharaoh and make sure that Pharaoh knows that I'm here unjustly." And of course, we're told at the very end of the Torah portion that the wine carrier did not remember Joseph, but rather forgot him. And it's interesting to note as well that forgetfulness is something that plays an important role in the story of Joseph and in the story of our people in Egypt. You'll know that in the book of Exodus, there arises a new Pharaoh who knew not or forgot about Joseph, or at least about what Joseph had done. It's interesting to note as well that when Joseph interprets the dream for Pharaoh in this week's Torah portion, where there are 7 skinny cows and 7 fat cows and 7 healthy ears and 7 unhealthy ears, that Joseph interprets it. He says this means there are going to be 7 years of plenty, after which there are going to be 7 years of famine. And that famine will be so bad that people are actually going to forget the 7 years that were good. They will forget the abundance of Egypt. I think this is an interesting verse, and it's something that occurs to us, right? Sometimes when things are so bad, we forget about the good times that were once there. Of course, this is, for people who are familiar with clinical depression, this is part of what clinical depression is, being so far in that hole that you can't even remember the good times. But this is, I think, true and to a much lesser extent for many of us during this pandemic, thinking about, it's been so difficult and so rough for so many of us that we can't really remember so well the good times before us. And I think one of the warnings of our tradition, certainly with a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph and with a wine steward who couldn't remember Joseph, that forgetfulness can be quite dangerous. And that even in the most difficult times, we have to remember the good times and remember that with faith and with hard work that we can bring those good times back. This week at Bethel, the Heights Synagogue, we observe the following yurtzites: Manuel Collin, Moses Horwitz, Dr. Richard Bloomfield, Zoltan Sant, David Elliott Sobel, Saul Olshansky, Jack Lertzman, David L. Sussman, Carl Gilbert Lampel, Adolf Weinberger, Sam S. Berkner, Doug Keller, Harry Samuel Weiss, Private First Class Michael Marks, Lawrence Mesnick, Ruth Ness, Rebecca Dorothy Charms, Joseph Tract, Max Adler, Bella Sobel, and Sydney Russack. Wishing all of you a wonderful Shabbat and a great last day of Hanukkah.